On this episode of Resiweek, we talk about why residential dealers should visit Infocomm 17, the show we recorded at live today. You'll love it. Check it out. All this and more on this episode of Resiweek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Peerless AV, the official outdoor display provider of the Daytona International Speedway.
Resiweek episode 71, Spirit Guide.
This is Resiweek.
Hey, this is Matt Scott for AVNation and Resiweek. We are live to you coming straight from Orlando, Florida for Infocomm 2017. This is the first show of the shows that we're going to be recording, so it's kind of a big deal, and we're fancy that Resiweek got the number one spot. Today we have Bruno Napoli. He is from Kirka, from Paris. How are you, sir?
Bonjour. I'm very well. Thank you. And thank you for having me here with you.
Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for using the one French word I know. I appreciate that. Then we have Ken Eagle. He is from Athlona. How are you, sir?
I am wonderful. Thank you.
Excellent. And last but not least, you probably know him. It's George Tucker from Backstage AV today.
First time on Resiweek.
Yeah. I keep forgetting that you're in Resi.
I know.
Pretty much full time now.
It's a whole
fantastic.
new world.
It is. All right, gentlemen, let's jump right in. Obviously, we are here at Infocomm, and it is not a residential show. It is strictly a Pro AV, a commercial show. Why does Infocomm matter for the residential dealers? Why is this a show that they should attend? Ken, I'll start with you.
Well, there's a couple of reasons, actually. Number one, you got the commercial market drives a lot of great technologies, and we see a lot of those in the residential space. So here's a great place to come and take a look at some of that technology that's out there and see what fits. Secondly, and probably more importantly, is the crossover between residential and commercial. We've seen this for years, and it's continued to grow. The residential market, integrators in that market have always dabbled a little bit outside of just the home theater and the whole home integration, especially when their client happens to be a CEO or owns a business or a chain of restaurants, and he asks his Resi integrator, hey, can you come and take a look at my restaurant? Can you put some TVs in the sports bar? I've got a boardroom. Do you have any solutions? Could you come out and take a look at that? And we've seen that trend grow. And at Lona, who I work for, we make a ton of great products that bleed over into both markets. Not just those great presentation products, but the technology, which bleeds over as well. And that's a great third point there, the technology. So we've seen over the years technology evolve from analog into digital. We've seen the tremendous growth of HD-based T products. HD-based T products crossed over both markets. You see now today, AV over IP, those products are splitting across both markets. So a lot of the stuff you see on the show floor here relevant in both cases.
Very good. Bruno, this is one of those things where, just as Ken said, we're seeing the crossover. We're seeing that proliferation of traditionally kind of Pro AV products and commercial AV products in the home. From the other aspect of it, what do residential dealers need to look for when they're trying to put those big pieces into the home? Because a lot of times it is plug and play, you just drop it in, but sometimes there's a lot more infrastructure requirements that have to go in.
You're talking about maybe the network, for example. Sure. What I used to say to my customers is we see today in the residential home that there's going to be more and more connected products. Maybe already today in every home you have more connected devices than in any small business.
Right.
So we have to come here in those type of professional shows to take a look of what's happening on the network, for example. I'm talking for my parts, okay? Right. We have a lot of things to learn from the commercial to take this into the home professional network system.
Right, very good. George, when a Resi dealer shows up, this can be a fairly intimidating show for them. And whether it's this show or a different show or a more regional show, if you had to give them a couple pieces of advice to navigate the show floor, to get out and about and see things without being dramatically overwhelmed because we all know there's a couple booths you can lose a day, if not more, and you can do speaker demos for days. What would be your couple pieces of advice, being someone who's been in the commercial business for so long and now made that transition to Resi?
Well, you go with what you know first, right? This is not a one-day hit. So if you can, you want to say, look, like you said, the speakers, go see a sample of what you know and something you don't know, and make time to find only parts of them. That sounds abstract, but my first time at when I was commercial with the CEDIA was, all right, I know about networking systems. I'm going to see those guys first and see what's different. I have a frame of reference and what's the same. And then move on and then make time at the end of the second day that I had there to see something else. It's about planning, planning, planning. Whom do I know? What do I want to see? And what do I want to learn? And to backtrack on some of the topics we came up with, especially the networking and IP stuff, coming here, there's a different class of training about networking. Systems we're expected to put into as a commercial person is enterprise class. And while we always recommend that you do that in Resi, and the CEDIA classes recommend it and that kind of stuff, is knowing how these manufacturers are dealing with an enterprise or commercial business class environment really is highly translatable to your network in a home. And it should be that. And I think that's the main takeaway from those kind of things.
Yeah. Since a long time, the network, if the network was not working very well in the house, it wasn't a big deal, because if you just can't browse your internet, no one will die. Okay. But now we have a great pressure on the residential home. We have internet, we have TV, we have security, we have a lot of service. So we have exactly the same pressure in the network in any residential home than we have in a commercial environment. Something that I would like people from the residential that come into Infocomm to learn is also the culture of service and maintenance that there is here. We can find it here, and we do not find it really in the residential part. So if you can go and talk with the people, how do you deal with service? How do you deal with maintenance? What do you charge for what? And this is, we have a lot of things to learn from this.
Very good. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to add to it too. So if you're coming to an Infocomm show for the first time, and I don't mean to be an advertisement for Infocomm here, but these guys do I've worked with them for a lot of years.
They'd like it, I bet.
They do a really nice job. Okay, they've got a great site. They've got great information. They put together a tremendous week here with a lot of classes, with a lot of places you can go to get information and to learn what manufacturers here and what they're selling. And the Resi guys are used to it. I mean, they've been part of CEDIA, a lot of them, for a long time, and it works that same way. They can get involved with Infocomm. There's tremendous committees in Infocomm. There are ones that will have education and training relative to what they're looking for that helps them when they come to the show. Always start there with them. I like them.
Now, speaking of education, and this is not to be negative towards CEDIA or the CEDIA channel by any means, but there is, George, you kind of touched on it, there is a greater level of education here because of the complexity, we'll say, of a lot of the systems that dealers are dealing with and the installations that are happening. Is it something where Resi guys should come in and devote half their time to the floor and half their time to taking some classes, to taking some business acumen, really just taking advantage of that for anyone?
Well, I can tell you, I mean, I was an integrator for years before I got into the manufacturing side of it, and I did exactly what you just said. I would literally plan that out ahead of time, and I knew there were classes I was going to take. Half of my time was split to that. Then the rest of my time was split for the floor, targeting what I wanted. And those classes are a great source of information. And if you're concerned about the time you have here, you can take those classes for the most part in a lot of ways online today. I couldn't do that years ago, but you can do that today. And then you can come here and still have all your floor time.
Very good. Did you have something?
No, again, just planning about the classes, that higher level is, and look, the Resi guys do, and some of these bigger houses, there is pushing of limits that a lot of commercial stuff will never get. Like using it for new things, really pushing bandwidth requirements because of all the streaming in the home. But the commercial environment is more about secure, stable, and not to change very often. In residential, we often say, hey, there's the newest hot product, you're going to want it. And while we see that with huddle room stuff, that concept really does double back to your residential of make it solid, make it this real way of doing secure stuff that the residential side didn't always take on.
Yeah, that's a really good point. One of the trends I've seen here, differentiating residential from commercial specifically, is redundancy. In the residential market, that's really not a factor. It's
Right.
not a feature. But on the commercial side, it's often a necessity.
Sure, because in the residential, as I said, if you can't browse your internet, no one lose money. In the commercial, if you can't do something, you're losing
Exactly.
dollars.
Revenue
So it's
tied
not
to
the
that.
same pressure. Okay, and I think that in very short time, we're gonna have the same pressure in the residential that we have in the commercial. Things should work and should work reliably. Is that the good
Reliability?
reliability?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's something where we're seeing that separation, we're seeing that growth in residential too, and I it always drives me nuts to say this, but to mission critical. And obviously, in a place of employment, internet, your systems, your conferencing, it has to be reliable, has to be up, has to have redundancy. As much as we don't feel that the client has to have that in the residential space, they usually do. And anyone who's had that phone call at 11 o'clock at night in the middle of a party that a system's gone down, that's when the redundancy matters. So part of my question is, when we start looking at, again, coming to the show, how much do we want to start, not stealing business practices, but kind of starting to, as much as you can, steal some of the more advanced business practices that the commercial side has?
Well, one of the debates that's been happening a lot too is remote services
Mhm.
or add-on services that in the commercial side we've been doing forever to manage environmental systems, to understand what the lighting's doing, that door access has been unlocked or locked and stuff like that. These are things in the home net that really are coming along. We have those abilities, but selling them at a profit and having the staff to do it is something commercial environments really know how to do. And understanding how a manufacturer of remote services software sells to the commercial side and what they offer really is a learning for the residential side. Like, this is where the profit comes from. Here's how you staff it. Here's how you make sure it's spread out so that you can do the, hey, I've just reset your system. Is everything back? Great. We'll be back on Tuesday to take a look at it. Not the somebody trying to find somebody on a cell phone and it does the whole roundabout and nobody answers. Those providers really do have a different mindset, and it applies to residential nowadays more than ever. It should.
Do you mean that people from the residential should go and work during vacation into just to learn?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Do you think that people from the residential could go and work into the professional market for some time during vacation?
I
just
see.
Just to learn,
Like do an internship or something. Yeah.
No, it could be interesting. Just to see how it works.
Well,
because a lot of people from the residential, they just come from the residential, from the passion, and they don't really know how to handle this professionally. Even if they want, they don't have the culture.
Yeah, and that's a really good point about handling it professionally. Like, not to be disparaging to the techs, but a lot of them haven't had that experience of having to be the face of a company in some manner. Usually, they're just a tech; they're doing their thing, and if the client asks them, it can become a very interesting scenario. Where you have to then look. I gained a nickname for a while at one of the residential companies I worked at was of Jesus George, because every time I was around, I was like, don't use that word. Why? Why are we speaking this way? It's as simple as that, but it's a practice. So yes, would it be beneficial? Yes, but it would also be beneficial for a lot of commercial guys to come in and see larger residential and just say, it's not just TVs being switched on and off. There's a lot going on that they can learn back from as well.
And that leads into a good point of, right now we've currently really just talked about how Resi can come in and learn from the Infocomm group. But vice versa, there are some things that your homeowners are doing at home that they want to do in the office. And some of the simplicity that, again, you have at the house because of not different products per se, but a different approach, a little bit more of a custom approach. My wife wants to be able to access this where I want to access that. And in more sterile environments in the commercial space, you don't always see that. Is that something that some of the commercial space people could pick up on.
Well, I think what it comes down to is this right here. Here's the difference. At home, I use this, right? I got immediate access to things. Not only do I have access on my phone, but I can sometimes share this onto my displays in my home. I'm used to doing that. Right? My kids do that. How can I do this in the office? I carry this with me. We've heard the term BYOD. You don't bring your own device. You're seeing that more and more and more every day. You're seeing manufacturers bring that out. And I think that's something that the residential market has addressed in a lot of ways, and the commercial market's trying to figure out how do we bring this into the office space and do it there too. Because whether it's employees who come in and want to share, or whether George comes in to do a presentation for my company, I want him to be able to access that. How does he just stream onto my network? And then how do I keep that secure? How do I keep his data off my corporate network and vice versa?
Yeah, and that's where, again, some of the classes that are available, whether it's from Infocomm specifically or manufacturer-specific training, is very important because, again, in the home space, if you come in and we're having a party and you guys want to jump on my MiFi and play music or jump into Sonos and control the playlist, that's fine. I'm not really concerned about your phone being on my Wi-Fi.
Yep.
But in a corporate environment, you're not going to have that freedom. And you're not going to have that, you're definitely not going to want to take that liability. Correct?
Yeah. That's 100% correct. No, you're crazy.
So I got blank spaces for a second.
No, we're just waiting for you to finish the point. Okay.
No, but you answered to the. You
I like answering my own questions.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I do. Speaking of network security, is this show going to be something where we're going to see an increased push towards network security as more and more devices are hopping on the network, obviously both residentially and commercially?
Oh, yeah.
Or are we already there?
Well, you're there to some extent, but I'll tell you, some manufacturers are there, some products are there, but what I see every day when I talk to integrators is the question. All right, I love the device, I love what you got for me, but first question out of their mouth, is it secure? Is my data secure? Can I put this on a secure network? My customer now is no longer just an AV guy, it's an IT manager, and he says, I can't have this. We can't do that. I can't put this on network. Can it run on a corporate network? Can I put it on a VLAN? Does it have to be, can it be tied to the system at all? If I put your device on the network and I don't understand it and it's broadcasting multicast traffic, is that going to shut down the email server? My CEO doesn't get his messages and purchase orders don't come in. That's a security issue still all around. There's a trust issue on the brand, and that's where the training comes in. All the integrators are going to have to understand that. And if you've been a traditional AV integrator, you may not have that IT and that networking knowledge to understand what that device does on the network. So it's there. We know about this, but more and more questions are coming in and more education. I mean, we're really just touching the surface of your question. We've got a long ways to go and a lot to address and a lot of education to roll out before everyone's going to feel comfortable with a lot of this new technology.
Very good.
You know, to evoke my networking spirit guide, Bradford Benn, if you're not thinking about security of your network as the top priority of the system, you're dead.
Yeah.
It's just, there's no better way, a nicer way to put it, because the IoT denial of service attacks that happened a couple of months ago, the ransomware stuff that popped around, which is not so much of that, but it's still there. You cannot let this stuff happen. For a corporate, it's terrible. For a residential home, it could be devastating now. Because remember, we're not just stereo systems. It's environmental, it's lighting, it's fire safety, it's security,
it's health.
All of those things. Some of it's health now. We're growing part of the market is the health part. Again, solid stuff that on this side we've been really used to doing, because if it failed, the CEO called and said, I ain't paying and I'm going to sue you, and has a team of lawyers behind him.
Right, and that has bigger implications, not only for that integrator who lost a job, gets sued. What about my product? As a manufacturer, my name's on that box. I didn't do anything to that network, but my equipment was there and it was installed improperly, perhaps. So we have an obligation to make sure the people installing our products know how to properly put it in and protect that network as well.
When it raises a good point, where's the cutoff point for integrators as far as their comfort level with networks? Because I would argue that right now, especially or even predominantly in the residential space, we don't know where that is. And most dealers will walk in and say, oh, I know how to log into my telco's router, So I can do that, throw a couple pieces in, and be happy and walk away.
Here's what I tell all of the integrators that I work with: partner with an IT integrator.
Mhm.
All right, if it's not your strong suit, partner with them. There's plenty of business. They're not stealing anything from you. Get somebody who's an expert. Let them come in and work with you, and have that guarantee that you're going to put in a secure network properly, and then you supply the AV side of it. Build a partnership with those people.
Yeah, and if there's a problem, you just call the guy in charge.
Exactly.
Because network, you will not be able to learn this in 2 hours of training here. Okay,
Yeah.
it's a lifetime. Okay, so we have a lot of things to do when you are in the residential. You have to know how to program your remote your home automation system and everything. There's a lot of thing in the head of a residential guy. So I think that you're right. The best thing is to partnership with a local IT guy, and he will do the great stuff for you.
It's going to make you stronger. That integrator stronger.
Sure.
And they're going to win more bids that way anyway.
You know,
Sure.
well, at Backstage, the two guys who started it were both former IT guys, and they did IT work with AV. And every system starts with the backbone.
Yeah.
And the backbone is a network.
Sure.
And that's where it starts, because they say we'll guarantee from here, and that's then you have everything you need.
Well, and I think that's the key. Is I think we're seeing a shift in the way AV integrators from the residential side are working, where the smart ones, the ones that are progressive, are going back and saying, you know what, I don't really care about the video or the audio. I care about the backbone, the network. That's what everything is now. And as long as we get that, then we can sell everything else. We can get whatever, switching device, whatever, audio matrix. None of that matters as long as we have the proper backbone.
Mm-hmm.
We can scale from there. And that's what the progressive guys are doing. So if you're not, do that.
You know what? Something that's good to partnership with an IT guy is he's going to help you to sell service and maintenance, because he's got that. He know how to do this. He know how to do this. So it's going to help you, because he's going to go and tell your customers, okay, we have the network done. We can plan a maintenance plan that we're going to come 3 or 4 times a year to update everything, every Wi-Fi access point and everything, to check if everything is still up to date regarding the security. So those people will help you to do this. And this is a very good point.
Yeah, it helps you devise your plan to offer those services. So last question I want to ask you guys. What are you looking forward to seeing on the show this year? I'll start with you.
Oh, it's my first time on the Infocomm, so I'm gonna
So
everything.
Everything.
No, I've been a couple of times at ISC, so I know a little. I think I'm gonna take a look at all the professional network manufacturer system.
Very good. Ken, I'm assuming you're not going to see as much because you'll be in your booth.
Yeah, but along the same lines of what we've been discussing, I agree. It's the audio video over network, the networked AV. That's such a big push right now, and there's so many new products coming out. There's so many new ways to do it. There's new manufacturers introducing new things, and what we're seeing right now, it's like an iceberg. In fact, it's like an iceberg that's being held down, because we're seeing this little tip of networked AV, and there's this massive growth of networked AV over the next couple of years that's just going to explode. And I think some of the I would go so far as to say some of the big AV integrators in our industry need to take a serious look at that too, or in 2-3 years down the road, they might actually be small AV integrators, because you're going to see the IT shops coming into this space now, because they understand this. If they can pick up AV people, their competition. They're the people who are going to help grow that massive AV distribution network that's coming up right now.
And this is why we do not have to be afraid to partnership with people.
Exactly.
Because it's like when you build a house, you are partnershiping with a plumber, an electrician, a carpenter, everything. Yeah. So we all have to partnership to build a house with everything inside.
Yep.
Very good.
Agreed.
George, what are you looking forward to?
I'm especially interested in how much impact VR will have at this show. It is something that I think it's hit a saturation point.
Yeah.
You're at the tipping point where you can buy offline now the little ones for your phone, but there's some serious interest from a lot of companies for training, for space visualization, for concept presentation, that I think we'll start to see more and more of those here, like with the digital signage people that are here. I'm really interested to see what some of those manufacturers are sort of implementing. And the other one that I'm now intrigued by is that there seems to be a emphasis on design, on sort of presentation of design. One of the things we used to comment about ISE is how beautiful some of these fixtures were, some of these light switches or parts and pieces. And suddenly we're starting to see touch panels and interfaces that have a little extra flair. Maybe not quite, Art Deco, but
like 35 pieces of flair.
Yeah, exactly. On your suspenders only. But that I think is important, because we've gone from these boxes where function was the form, and that's great when you're putting them in a rack. But you know what? How do we make people fall in love with this stuff?
Well, and we're also
beyond now the slick graphics.
Yeah, because we're starting to see more designers get involved in spaces that were traditionally, speaking of the commercial side, the commercial integrator space. The boardrooms were always theirs. And now the designers are really getting involved in those spaces, and they don't want to see some of the stuff that traditionally we would just put in.
Well, a touch panel is a touch panel. If you put it in a bedroom, it is corporate looking, even if you try to jazz it up. But if you have something that has a little bit of niceness to it, it fits within the decor, and it's a beautiful piece, they're going to use it more. And it's going to be something that is there, not, that the husband put that in, for the lights.
Yeah, when it becomes a piece of jewelry in the house.
And I don't want to, that's getting a little weird on, metaphor of that, but you see what I'm saying, is it's an art, and it's something that should be exhibited and seen and useful. And I'm seeing more and more of that, even on the commercial side, but I love that idea that it can come over.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Bruno, how can people connect with you?
They can connect me with my email, for example, bruno.napoli@get-crica.com.
Very good. Excellent. Ken, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Couple ways to connect. ken.eagle@atlona.com. Always a great way. And atlona.com. Check out the website. And for everyone interested in Atlona, check out the training page or hit atlonaacademy.com. Amazing, very in-depth, detailed training, completely free to all of our partners, Infocomm accredited.
Very good. Georgie?
Almost any social media, Tucker Twos, Instagram, AVNation Tucker, and Tucker Twos, covering the show, my Instagram this week.
Very good. For myself, if you'd like to connect with me, which you should, shameless plug.
Shameless.
What do you want? You can follow me at Matt D. Scott on Twitter and every other social platform. But more importantly, please stop by avnation.tv. You'll see this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you stop by the website, please take a moment to check out our underwriters. They support us. We're thankful for that and ask that you support them. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of Resiweek.